of succeeding with cloud native. It is my immense pride and pleasure to invite on stage Mr. Yogi Rampuria. He is the Principal Solution Engineer from Yogabyte DB. Okay, a big round of applause for him. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm audible, right? Without the mic? Yeah. I've been told I'm quite loud. All right. Are we there? Where's my... Oh, yeah, doing good. I'm still experimenting with a new Bluetooth keyboard thing on the phone, so just bear with me. Yeah, my name is Yogi Rampuria. I'm here to actually talk about... Whoa. All right. You can probably tone it down a couple of notch. Okay, all right. I need to actually speak slowly then. All right. A little bit about myself. Who has actually heard me talk before? Okay, I can actually have all my jokes then. Yeah, I mean, I'm always worried that I'll repeat the jokes and people are like, meh, I've heard that one before. So who am I? I'm a solution engineer at Yogabyte DB. I'll be talking briefly about them, but in the spirit of the community and open source and DevOps, I would be keeping this talk extremely vendor neutral. I'm based here in Singapore. I'm a coder from late 80s. I have been through quite a few companies in my career, latest being Yogabyte DB, VMware, Pivotal. I have a colleague sitting behind from VMware times. And of course, I spent a good amount of time at BlackRock as a software engineer, application developer, and everything in between. Those are all the countries that I have been to. So, if you know anybody who's looking for some consulting work or want to learn more about Kubernetes in any other country apart from those, I'm always looking forward to adding flags. And those are all the sports that I have played. The last one is very important. Let's see if this thing works. This one, can somebody tell me what was that? I'm a black belt in karate. So, yeah, make sure you clap, okay? All right. Sorry? I think I'll be as good as new soon. All right. So, the most important thing when you're taking your cloud native journey is learning to learn. Every endeavor, not just in cloud native actually, you will find that the ability to learn, as we grow older, right, it becomes a little more challenging. But learning to learn, relearning things, unlearning things, it's all part of learning. So that's very important. And you will see why I'm saying this, what I'm saying here, right? And the second biggest lesson is learn to crawl before you walk, before you run, right? It's not reflection of me that, I tried to run while I couldn't. It was a sports accident. You should have seen the other guy. Okay, so, and importance of MVPs. People who have been working in the MVP. Has anybody seen this one before? It's a very popular image, at least in the circles that I run. When you're actually trying to think of an MVP, don't think what's there on the top here, right? Oh, let me make one wheel. No. An MVP is a functional prototype that you're going to have, something you can actually put in front of people. Yeah, it's very important. And it will be reflective in everything that I'm going to talk about. These three values, right? They are going to be reflective. They are the essence and spirit of everything that I'm going to talk about. Okay, I'm going backwards because, okay, one thing I should do is always put my phone on the vertical position, so that makes it easy. Okay, so what is cloud native? Just a quick answer. Anybody who's here, like show of hand. I have swags to give away. If you ask good questions, you'll get swag. Okay, shy guys, shy folks. Okay, typically when people talk about cloud native, they think that, oh, it's about running on AWS, Azure, or public cloud or cloud providers and all. No, it's actually a practice. When you think about running on public cloud providers or any sort of cloud environment, right, that's actually, I say that as native cloud. It's not same as cloud native, right? The idea behind cloud native computing is to take advantage of the modern software practices, the delivery capabilities that we have built through technology, through practices, through experience, right? we would be using a few things which are which I absolutely agree with this particular image. All these images are not done by me. I've taken it from all over the place. So feel free to credit them, not me. This, I think, is a perfect embodiment of cloud native. Being able to take DevOps practices together with CI/CD capabilities and have a more microservices. I mean, microservices is an overloaded term nowadays. I would say more loosely coupled services is easier. Like soon comes in like something like Dapper and it will say, no, 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 no. And by the way, just for disclaimer, none of the content was generated by ChatGPT. So that's my one joke around generative AI. Okay, so cloud native is all about PPT. What's PPT? Anyone? Hint, hint, it's not PowerPoint. Okay, it's people, process, and technology. Okay, it's not just purely about technology. I mean, you heard the panel discussion before me, if you were in the room. They highly sort of, entered around this topic that, yes, it's a cultural thing. You need to have people who can do it and stuff like that. So, don't go back, go front. Yeah, actually, I'm going front. So when we think about PPT, the power, people, process, and technology, you think of these things in each of those quadrants. Whether you're doing CI/CD, think, what is the people who are going to use it, what their experience is going to be like. It's very important. If you have a world-class service that you have built using ChatGPT or not, okay, but if it is super complicated to use, even for engineers, they're not going to use it. So think of the experience. It's very important. So what about people? One thing that over the years, like talking to a lot of customers and partners over the years, what I have seen is having a product mindset is one of the key ingredient for succeeding with cloud native. Being able to actually move away from a pure project mindset to a product-oriented mindset. Can somebody tell me what's the difference between the two? Have you heard like, don't be project, you're not allowed actually. He's a friend. This guy is like, yeah, he's pretty smart, so no. Can anybody tell me what's the difference between a product and project? There's a very simple difference. And if you're from VMware, you can't answer. Or Red Hat, actually. Sorry, we have an answer there. Ownership, okay, good. You'll get the swag, but I wouldn't waste time in that. I have only 21 minutes here. So the most important thing, the biggest difference between a product and a project is, a project always has an end, right? Whenever you're doing a project with anybody, like, your boss will ask you, hey, Yogi. I mean, my boss asks me. Actually, we are more a product-oriented company, so he doesn't. Just imagine. Hey, Yogi, when is this project going to end? But you would have never asked, hey, when is that Samsung Galaxy going to end? Like, have you asked, like, when iPhone is getting ended? It's a product, right? It evolves. It doesn't have an end date. It evolves. And that very basic fundamental actually makes you think about the other aspects. Well, guess what? The number one thing, which is you need to name a product. Anything you call a product, you need to name it, right? You can't keep saying, oh, this is our sort of, phone selling product. Come on. Make it like a nice name, like Galaxy, yeah, that's fine. Or iPhone, like if you're in that world, right? So that is very important. Product team, like we are talking more on a software side. So having a product team is very, very important. It comprises of engineers. So I have even if you're a UX developer or front-end, back-end, anything in between, for me, you're an engineer, right? Even if you're an infrastructure, you're an engineer, right? That's what I do it. You will have breakdowns of these things in variety of, books and all. What I'm showing you is pure experience. That's it, nothing else. Very important thing is a product manager, because product manager would actually make your product more successful than you as an engineer can ever do. First of all, you as an engineer, you will fail at the one most, In computer science, how many problems are there? Just two, you know, right? The two problems of computer science. There's naming things, invalidating cache, and off by one error. That's one computer science joke from me. Okay, so when it will come to name, right? If you tell an engineer to name it, you know what Elon Musk did to his son's name, right? It's like, come on. Like, in some pop culture, it might be cool. So the important thing is, whenever you are actually building the product, you keep a backlog. And see, I told you this would happen, right? So I give away like everything that I worked for. Okay, you didn't see that last 5 minutes. Please scratch that from the record. Not in the court, sorry. Okay, so you need to have a backlog for the product. Everything that you're going to work on, everything that you're going to build, backlog. You will groom the backlog, you will prioritize it, and things like those. So these are practices from product management, and it's a big field on its own. But I have seen companies succeed in cloud native by actually adopting this mindset. You actually define key metrics, but most importantly, because of the first point that I mentioned, product versus project, you need funding. You need an evergreen funding for this team. If you cannot actually secure an evergreen funding, you're going to have a tough time. Yeah. For keeping the lights on, keeping the spirit going, always have recognitions for your team members, for your ambassadors, for your contributors. Accept contributions from outside. Don't be a closed system. Be open. Platform as a product is a very, very important aspect in succeeding with cloud native. You need to have a cloud native platform. You can base it on public cloud, that's perfectly fine. Don't just use what is out there for yourself as is. Always make certain assumptions about your own state, about your own context. Do the mapping and do the gap analysis and bridge that gap. And that would help you in like coming up with what kind of common services are we going to put, right? Do we just use GitHub? Do we have internal? Image registry, like that's a very, very important thing when it comes to cloud native. IAM, how application to application access will work, right? All these things are something not every engineer would be capable of handling. And that's where you need the core product team, the core platform product team, which will actually answer and solve for these problems. Don't be like a closed well, like be open, take contribution. There are patterns that would be identified along the way, take those. You can always create a center of excellence. I have seen that to be a very good ingredient for the success. And it actually gets locked. Process. So, you need to think about how users are onboarded to your product, the platform product, right? You have to think about that. What is the bare minimum information that you can take for them? How do you reduce their, like, it shouldn't be, you have to be yay high to ride this, right? Just keep the bar low. Make it easy for people to come on board. You can always have patterns, you can always have packaging. Basic, maybe just sending an email is fine. Over a Slack, even better. A pull request, even good, right? Again, remember, you have to automate these things. You can't like have an email and a person like going and taking 5 days to onboard a user. You can't have that. You should have it more automated, right? Application and system onboarding. An application requires a number of VMs or something. You need to have it done faster. You can't have cycle times of like 10 days for provisioning the infrastructure for the application. Not worth, not scalable. How do you actually have your builds being promoted through the system? Like it's also a very important aspect. So these are the processes that you would always think of when you work for it. But very importantly, as a product team, as a cloud native product team, whether you are on the application side or whether you're on the platform side, always have an avenue for a feature request. Like accept it from anywhere. Could be internal, could be external, community. Depends on what your product is. Retrospectives are very, very important. A lot of times we don't actually reflect on what we have achieved, right? And that feeds into the recognition area as well. So retrospectives are very, very important. What worked well, what didn't work, do what works more, do what doesn't work, just drop it. Just drop it. versioning becomes a very important thing. So you should have a very clear way of versioning your APIs, versioning your products, versioning your infrastructure, control codes, and everything. And most importantly, automate as much as possible. But remember, crawl, walk, run. Don't try to boil the ocean. Actually, I have a thing. So we come to the technology, right? But first we go, like I've been at it for about 15 minutes now. Like, why, what I'm saying, like, is it something that like just came in my head and I just started talking about it? No. There is actually a proper study that has been done. How many of you are aware of this book, Accelerate? Raise your hand. You are not allowed. It's an excellent book, which is an entire write-up on the State of DevOps report that comes out yearly. The last one came out in 2022. We are still awaiting 2023 version. And between 2020, I mean, I haven't read the whole report. I have read it in passing, bits and pieces, but never done it. Like, it's a very extensive report. It's like about 40 over pages. And there's like lot of writing and not enough cartoons, sorry. But it has some interesting points. The DORA assessment organization, which was independent, but now it has obviously gone under Google. But I think the spirit of it still maintains. And most importantly, they actually took like, I don't know the number of surveys, but it was like some insane amount, like 6,000 surveys or something like that through organizations and all, and they have actually built this report. Read the book. I mean, it's a very good book. I haven't finished it cover to cover, but I have finished all the pages, though. So these are the 5 key metrics when it comes to your cloud native journey, DevOps journey, whatever you want to call it. For me, all these things are same. You're going to have mean time to recovery, lead time, change frequency. I'm actually looking at the screen. I don't remember them by heart, okay? And change failure rate. The 5th one that got added in 2021 is actually around reliability, which is the operational performance aspect. As an organization, you start looking at these metrics. When you want to succeed at cloud native, you need to look at these metrics for yourself. You need to start recording them, start capturing them, start comparing them. Every action that you're taking, every enhancement that you're doing at every product level, be it an application, be it a platform, you record this and see how well you're doing. Just to put a perspective, right? These are like some of the sort of, areas where people would fall. So based on the responses that people have given for various things, how frequently do you deploy? Based on that, like for example, if you deploy once per month or every 6 months, your performance is considered sort of low, right? But if you're somebody like Google, Amazon, which is like, it's like, it could be any number of times on demand, we can just get it to production and everything. That's what it is. So this becomes, I think it's a great body of study of our software engineering times, the time that we are living in right now. It's actually a very good study to sort of map yourself against and compare what you're doing, how you're faring against the industry standards. This is how the responded sort of, like all the respondents that came to DORA, this is how they sort of fared. So you will see an important change since 2021. In 2022, they actually dropped the elite, and they have basically combined under high. And of course, the number of respondents have gone high. So you might see, oh, this one is bigger, this one is smaller, but the number of respondents have become higher. But what you will see is a huge jump in the mediums. And the lows are still sort of, there and there, right? So if you feel that you're not doing all that well or something like that, well, guess what? You're not alone in the journey, right? There you have key metrics that you can track. You can track yourself against this. It comes out every year. We are still awaiting the one this year. Oops, did I go back? Yeah. So at the back of that, there are some technology choices that you will make upfront. You can still have them flexible, but they are still decisions that you will make. What's your delivery style? It could differ from product to product. Platform could go for more agile approach where they are iteratively enhancing stuff. You can have even, waterfall model for certain things. I mean, like if it's a big project which has multi-company sort of thing, yeah, I think waterfall becomes easier there because then there are no surprises. It's it's not a very popular sort of opinion these days, but I'm telling you what I have seen. Testing technology is very, very important, and being able to test everything, because if you're not able to test and ensure everything that you're building is working, um, it will impact your metrics, your change failure rates, right? If you crash every time you release, that's not very good. There's no point in releasing frequently if it crashes every time. Yeah? So testing becomes quite important. You can actually have it upfront through like TDD or BDD capabilities, extreme programming. What you should totally avoid is any sort of big bang releases. Like, if your releases are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, try and avoid that. Try and actually, break it down. And that's where the product manager, product owner becomes quite important, because they have that experience to sort of envision, they have industry experience, industry knowledge, how the industry behaves, what is an acceptable thing. I'll give you a very simple example. Trust Bank went online. How many of you are a Trust Bank customer? Wow, okay. Not many, I guess. But they actually built a quite a good product, right? They built it, and internally they would test it and everything. But when they went out with their MVP, there were some capabilities that were just not there, that we are used to. Credit review, not there. But that's okay. They do not need credit review on day one to be successful. When they start seeing enough interest on the credit reviews, sure, why not? Let's put it in. And that is the kind of evolutionary mindset that you need to have with products. Very importantly, the API part is very, very important, because if you're going to build something in this day and age, always have more of an API-oriented architecture where you actually expose the API of everything, every data point that you have exposed as an endpoint. I'm not saying everything has to be a REST-based API. If it is messaging-oriented, event-oriented, that's perfectly fine, not a problem, right? I mean, frankly, even file-based setup is an API. Your interface is a file, right? But have that in mind. If you're going to build many, many microservices, having a more consistent API approach is actually quite useful in long run. JSON API, OData, all these kind of things you can actually, don't say, oh, my API is gRPC. No, that's not. That's a wire protocol. Don't say my API is JSON. No, because JSON is loose. It doesn't have schema. Every time you change, something breaks down the stream. So if you have something more, I'm okay with you using something like Hatios or JSON API. That's perfectly fine. By the way, JSON API is not an API based in JSON. No, it's a proper standard. Go have a look at it. It's very, very good. So these kind of guidance is very, very important. Otherwise, when you are going to have many, many teams doing many things, becomes a nightmare. So this is what I call the Olympic rings of cloud native. Use open source. Prefer to use open source wherever you can. Use cloud neutrality. Every time you think of a solution, just imagine, hey, if I were to use it on another cloud, will it work? Right? Very, very important. Horizontal scalability. You can't get bigger and bigger boxes. We have limits on that, right? And it becomes expensive to run big boxes, whether even if you're on cloud, even if you're on-prem, you're on cloud, it becomes very expensive. So think about actually expanding horizontally. Using containers, I think in 2023, if you're not using containers, you better have a very good reason for that. I'm serious. And APIs, again, can't stress enough. Did I go back? Yeah, I did. If you're building microservices, make sure you follow this 12-factor. I mean, this is there. This is not new. This has been I am at least seeing it for 6+ years. So if you're seeing it for the first time, come talk to me. So the idea is you will have a single code base which would get deployed at many places. Your dependencies would actually be specified very clearly in a configuration file. Your configuration and application are separate and they use each other. Like the application uses configuration. You will have concurrency. You will have multiple instances of the application running. You will have admin processes. How do you do database migration? Well, it's an admin process. It's outside your application. Have a Kubernetes job doing it for you. Using an evolutionary architecture where, yeah, it's perfectly fine to start with one application which has a lot of functionality, and then later actually breaking it into multiple containers or something like that is perfectly fine. This is an example. When you are at like a 10 to up to 20,000 concurrent users, it's perfectly fine for you to have a microservice writing straight to the database. But if you're trying to cater to a 50 million active users kind of a thing, you probably are better off in something like this. So just don't, like, the moment you're going cloud native doesn't mean you have to just go and start using Kafka. No. It's perfectly fine to use that database that nobody thinks is good enough anymore. In your typical architecture, you will have your applications, some shared services, and some infrastructure. When you crawl, again, the same analogy, crawl, walk, run. This could be your infrastructure thing, where you have production and DR, and like nobody likes the word DR anymore. Everybody's talking about active-active. Well, crawl before you run. Then, once you have established, and very importantly, look at the parity. It's one of the principles of 12-factor apps. You should have parity between your environments. And then you can obviously go for the best of the breed, which is active-active, 3 sites. And why 3 sites? I mean, somehow in distributed computing, 3 is actually a very good number. I mean, 3 is also like number of homicides you need to be a serial killer, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, you do apparently. And what I have come to now sort of conclude is running on Kubernetes is almost equivalent to what I would call as a cloud native. If you're running on Kubernetes, I would say almost, because there is a reason for it. Why running on Kubernetes is because that actually provides you with a very good abstraction across the clouds, across hybrid and multiple public clouds. And this, I mean, I have seen this with a lot of customers and partners in the region, but actually Dora report for the first time actually captured this, which was like pretty interesting. Since 2021, look at the amount of change. 25% more people have adopted hybrid setups. So this is not like something which is an utopian idea, it's a reality. Experience for the users, for the developers, think of their outer loop and inner loops. Inner loop is where what you run on your machine. Every service that you're building, have a container, have like a Helm chart people can deploy on their machine on a kind cluster. If you work on an enterprise, please advocate the use of Docker on their laptops. I know a lot of, I've worked for a bank and I wasn't able to use a Docker container on my laptop. It's not very productive. If you're a technology leader, please allow developers to use Docker containers. And I have few more slides. I hope I have time. Again, you will have engineers, code to run, everything goes through source repository. And if you run something on Kubernetes, this is what your user experience would look like. Your packaging for the application looks like. And I think this is something I wanted to show you, like, because a lot of times when I talk about, oh, database on Kubernetes, like half the room is like, get out of here. No, you can. You can run a database on Kubernetes. Like this is a guy who's, Kelsey Hightower, he's a very highly decorated engineer, very well known in Kubernetes community. You should look for Cloud SQLs. which, like, obviously, I started my cloud native journey about 6 years ago, and now I have gone into databases. And I think this is what we are at today. If you're going to run databases on Kubernetes, make sure that it's a distributed SQL database. What's the best one to use? Come talk to me. I think I don't think I have time for demo, but yeah, you can have my contact. I'm available on WhatsApp. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'm based here in Singapore, so time zone shouldn't be a problem. And whoever asked the question, please come and collect some swag from us later. All right. I think I did decent. Any questions before we get ready for the next speaker? Sorry, who's the next speaker?
No questions? Okay.
No questions? Oh, I delivered an impeccable presentation, I guess. All right. Have a good day. Thank you very, very much for staying back for such a late chapter. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. So thank you, Yogi. I think this was one of the session where we cracked jokes, and we have really learned a lot in a humorous way. It was very interesting, very insightful. So I take pleasure in felicitating you if you can come on the middle of the stage.